Thank you very much, Indiana. Let's give ourselves a round of applause. Let's give this microphone a little more gain. So this is Holy Ground number 40. When we started in San Francisco, number 40 seemed a long way away. I thought we may not make it. But here we are, and thank you so much.
Amen. Amen.
So, yeah, it's a good feeling.
Wow.
But while I was praying, God prompted me to ask a question. How many people have been here and prayed at this holy ground before? Show of hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, this is not good. This is not good. You know, I went to UTS twice and studied there quite a lot the history of Christianity, and particularly about pilgrimages and how people got excited when they thought they found something that was connected to the life of Jesus.
Oh, yeah.
For example, if you go to Jerusalem, you'll find the church of the, in Bethlehem, first of all, the church of the Nativity. It's not actually the church where Jesus was born. Of course, they didn't have any churches there. But they treat it so seriously as if it is. And you can kind of look in the ground, a little hole where they say Jesus is born. You go to Jerusalem and you see the church that's at Golgotha, apparently. And millions of people go there, even though they know in their hearts probably Jesus wasn't really here, this isn't it. Then there's the Garden of Gethsemane. You know, that also is available, and people go there and think this is where Jesus was. But nobody really knows for sure. In fact, Father made a holy ground in Jerusalem at a place he said was more likely where Jesus would have prayed. And the olive trees are indeed 2,000 years old.
Wow.
Or then there was the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls. You've probably heard about those, and the community at Qumran. And people are so excited because they feel we're a little bit closer to Jesus. But our situation should be very different. I mean, we're living in the presence of true parents. True mother is still here. And Father's footsteps, although 50 years is a long time by the human calendar, you know, compared to God's calendar, that's very, very recent. I almost feel I can look at the grass and still see the squashed grass where Father stood. After all, the first Gospels were not written until about 50 years after Jesus. So we have to think this is really just the beginning. It would be a huge mistake to think, well, Father's in the spirit world, so already it's too late. No, not at all. Actually, Christianity began after Jesus was resurrected into heaven, and people like Paul came along and fearlessly spread the message throughout the world at that time. So that really brings us to the question, what are we going to do now? You know, if this day here in Hammond is the end of it, we will have failed miserably. But if we make a commitment here today, we're going to build a new foundation for God and true parents, including here in Hammond, then this will be a great day and God will really be smiling.
Amen.
And who does it depend on? Are there some other people outside of this park that God may be relying on to build something in Hammond? I don't think so. I think it's the people standing right here, right now. And that means that all of us have to make a determination. You know, some people have asked me, Mike, why aren't we seeing a Pentecost here in America? Why don't we see Father manifesting himself from heaven everywhere and all the time? So I asked Father that very question at one of the holy grounds earlier. And he told me, well, number one, I am planning to work through True Mother. And number two, I plan to work through you. But unless you speak, unless you testify, how can I inspire anyone? I need you to do something. So each holy ground, I ask people a question. Those of you who have been with me for the beginning are fed up with it now. It's the same question. Who today, this morning, has told somebody else about the good news of God and his kingdom and true parents and the divine principle? Today. Few people, right? And they're all on the tour. Guess what? That's because that's what we do on this God's Hope for America tour. Whenever we see somebody, we share with them about the tour. It's real simple. We ask them, what do you think is God's hope for America? and we find out, what do they think? And we ask them, check us out. Go find it. But 90% of the people here can't say, today I told somebody about True Parents. If I asked you, did you tell anyone this week? Maybe many people would say no. Or this month, or even this year. That's the shocking state of our personal life of faith. And I'll be honest with you, that was my situation until I started this tour. You know, it's easy when you're president, you sit in the office, you're inundated by problems and complaints, and you feel, I don't have time to tell anyone anything. And even if I did, what would I tell them? You know, we have this problem and that problem and this. But God has really humbled me on this tour. None of that matters, because that's all in the past. What matters is the future. The principle is true. True parents are bringing salvation through the blessing. God is king, and he intends and he will create his kingdom on the earth.
Amen.
Our job is to tell people about that. Their job is to listen. God's job is to educate them and teach them. But if we don't take the first step, it's not going to happen. So I want to challenge you this morning in the nicest possible way. Promise me, from now on, you'll tell somebody every day. You don't have to do much. You could pick up some of these pieces of literature that we're using for the tour. When you buy gas, when you go to the grocery, when you meet someone crossing the street, just ask them, what do you think is God's hope for America? Yeah, 1 in 10 people will say, go away. But most people take time to stop and think. They really do. So it's up to us. You know, if we do that, I know we can build a thriving church right here in Hammond. God puts a number in my head every prayer. Sometimes it's a big one, sometimes a small one. Today he told me there's 120 people in Hammond who are ready to study the principle, ready to join the church. Right here this morning, 120 in this city. So that's a job for Toby and for Kazuo Takami and members from Chicago and Indianapolis. Maybe you can plant a church here again. You can imagine 1900 years from now, you know, people say, well, Father placed a holy ground in Hammond, but the members only went there every 50 years. And then I don't want to give that testimony, right? So this is a day of renewal and rebirth, because it's absolutely sure when we testify about God and true parents, God will give the increase. God will multiply the good news. He will. You can try it and see, because when we come back here next year, and we will, there can be 500 people here. And most of them will be here for the first time because they heard about true parents from us in this coming year. Can we do that?
Yes.
Can we do that?
Yes.
That is better. Let's sing one more song.